If a flood hits and your first instinct is to attack President Trump instead of help victims, you're not a journalist. You're a political hitman. You guys gotta check this video out.
And joining me now is Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Secretary Noem, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you for being here after a remarkably busy week. I did have an opportunity to speak with President Trump by phone. He did praise your response to the floods in Texas. There are obviously a lot of questions, though, so I want to talk to you about some of those, including about a rule that you recently implemented. It reportedly requires that every FEMA contract, every grant over $100,000 be personally approved by you. Now, officials within the agency have told multiple news outlets that the policy led to a slower deployment of some FEMA resources, including...
So guys, simply the only thing that was delayed here is the truth. President Trump's team was there in hours. That's what they're trying to hide from you. They wish it was slower.
Search and rescue crews. So
make sure you guys are liking the video.
Did your policy delay some of the critical response resources on the ground in Texas?
You know, those claims are absolutely false. Within just an hour or two after the flooding, we had resources from the Department of Homeland Security there helping those individuals in Texas. It was a heartbreaking scene, and I think it's been well covered about what the Coast Guard did, how they were deployed immediately and helped rescue so many individuals from those floodwaters. And we had Border Patrol down there with their tactical teams, and FEMA was there just within a few hours as well. So those claims are false. They're from people who won't put their name behind those claims, and those call centers were full.
Exactly, man. Trump doesn't just say things and sit on his hands, right? He deploys the whole entire team. FEMA, the border control, everybody's there, you know? He makes sure the good job gets done. All boots on the ground pretty fast. Let's keep going, guys. Please make sure you're liking the video and leave a comment.
Fully staffed and responsive, and this was the fastest, I believe, in years, maybe decades, that FEMA has been deployed to help individuals in this type of a situation.
Well, let's drill down a little bit. I know there were resources that were deployed, but I think the question revolves around, were all of the necessary resources deployed? According to reports, multiple FEMA officials said you didn't approve the deployment of these FEMA search and rescue teams until Monday, which was 72 hours after the flood started.
Nope, they were deployed immediately as soon as they were requested. And I think what matters the most here is what the local officials on the ground say and what their feedback is. You know, I was there that very morning, and that afternoon when the flooding was happening, and was with those emergency responders right away, with the governor, with Nim Kidd, who's running the state's response. And every one of them will tell you that they got everything that they needed when they asked for it immediately, and that they've never seen a federal government respond in support of a state's management of a disaster situation like this. So those claims, I don't know who's making them out of FEMA. And because FEMA has been incredibly responsive, we've had over 700 different employees engaged right in Texas. And as soon as that disaster request was put in, forwarded to the White House and approved within hours.
Well, when was the request put in, and when did you approve it? And is this accurate that there's this $100,000 sign-off that you have to do?
The $100,000 sign-off is for every contract that goes through the Department of Homeland Security.
So you did implement that policy.
It's an accountability on contracts that go forward, but there was no break in contracts. Those contracts were approved as soon as they were in front of me. And FEMA knew they were fully to deploy the instant that the local officials asked for the request.
When did you get the request for these search and rescue teams and other resources?
They were immediately responded.
What
yes,
day?
And everyone will tell you.
According to reports, they didn't arrive until.
Listen to Kristen Welker. She doesn't really care what she has to say. She's just trying to read off her script and prove a point and control a narrative. You gotta dislike people like this. You just have to.
Well, this is what I think is really unfortunate, is that we have a situation where so many individuals are playing politics with what happened to Texas. And the governor and the emergency responders on the ground, the mayor of that city, the judge in that county who has some authority over emergency response, every one of them said, as soon as we asked for help, they were here. The federal government was here. And we didn't just deploy FEMA. We deployed our Coast Guard and BORTAC teams. Border Patrol was amazing. Every single agency that we had was there helping as many individuals as we possibly could. And that's what I think is remarkable. It's a very different response, I think, from the federal government we've ever seen in a disaster like this, because we had so many different agencies immediately respond, and that's the way that it should be.
I do want to talk big picture in just a moment, but the New York Times is reporting that thousands of calls from flood victims to FEMA call centers went unanswered in the middle of this ongoing disaster because you didn't renew contracts to keep call center staff in place until nearly 1 week after the floods. Why did it take so long to?
So really quick, guys, one thing that they're not telling you is those call centers were flooded. I know that sounds funny, but no pun intended. Those call centers were flooded. The media is sitting there counting phone rings while FEMA was rescuing people. That's what you got to pay attention to, guys.
To extend those
It's
contracts.
just false. Those contracts were in place.
It didn't take 5 days?
No employees were off of work. Every one of them was answering calls. So false reporting, fake news, and it's discouraging. It's discouraging that during this time when we have such a loss of life and so many people's lives have turned upside down, that people are playing politics with this because the response time was immediate. And if you talk to anyone in Texas that was there, that was a part of this operation, they would say the federal government and President Trump immediately responded.
Just to be very clear, on July 7th, 15.9% of calls were answered. I mean, does that concern you that only 15% of calls were answered? These are people in a desperate state. FEMA, often the first call that they make, only 15% were answered on July 7th, several days after the floods.
These contracts were in place and those people were in those call centers and they were picking up the phone and answering these calls from these individuals. So that report needs to be validified. I'm not certain it's accurate and I'm not sure where it came from. And the individuals who are giving you information out of FEMA, I'd love to have them put their names behind it because the anonymous attacks to politicize this situation is completely wrong. I care, these emergencies need to be conducted exactly how President Trump handled this one. It was that the local responders are the ones who execute the response. The state comes in and manages it. And then the federal government comes in and supports it. And as soon as Texas asked for anything, we were there.
Just very quickly, I mean, disasters often cost millions, if not billions of dollars. You've acknowledged there is this policy you implemented to sign off on contracts that exceed $100,000. Why add extra red tape when there is a crisis of this magnitude?
It's not extra red tape. It's making sure everything is getting to my level and that it's immediately responded to. This was not slowed down at all. In fact, it was much more responsive. If you remember, I was there. I was standing right there long before this report ever came out and people were asking and we were granting permission in real time. So the false reporting has been something that is inappropriate, and it's something that I think we need to clear up, and that this response was by far the best response we've seen out of FEMA, the best response we've seen out of the federal government in many, many years, and certainly much better than what we saw under Joe Biden.
Two more quick ones on FEMA, then we need to get to deportation. Senator Elizabeth Warren is calling for you to resign. Your response, is there any chance you would resign?
No, there's not, and I hadn't heard that, but, I don't care what she thinks.
Very quickly, we have heard President Trump, we have heard you.
That right there, guys, is how you handle Elizabeth Warren's nonsense. You know, she always just goes up there and she says anything. You've seen her on Caitlin Collins, the CNN show. You've seen her there. No apologies, no backpedaling, just facts and staying focused on the goal. We need these people safe. We need FEMA doing its job, which is what they're doing. And we need you to focus on the legacy that Trump is trying to leave behind. Let's keep going, guys.
Say that ultimately FEMA needs to be eradicated. We heard the tone shift a bit this week. Bottom line, Madam Secretary, will the president move to eradicate FEMA altogether?
No, I think the president recognizes that FEMA should not exist the way that it always has been. It needs to be redeployed in a new way, and that's what we did during this response. If you saw, it's not just FEMA that can respond in these situations. The federal government has all kinds of assets, and we deployed them. The Coast Guard coming in and saving individuals with their rescue swimmers, with their helicopters. They had fixed-wing aircraft deployed as well. Border Patrol with their BORTAC teams, and now we've got also some dog teams that are down there helping with recovery efforts, and then FEMA alongside of them helping people setting up shelters, deploying supplies. It was all immediate, and that's what the president wants to do, is empower these states to run their emergency, and we come in and support them. And immediately, when those requests were made, they were approved and deployed.
So I just want to be very clear, and we're going to move on to deportation. The president no longer wants to eradicate FEMA, but what you're saying is to overhaul FEMA, but not eradicated altogether.
I think he
Correct?
wants it to be remade so that it's an agency that is new in how
Okay.
it deploys and supports states.
Let me get your reaction. A federal judge in Los Angeles temporarily blocked ICE raids in Southern California, saying that federal agents cannot target people without reasonable suspicion and using factors like skin color, the language that people speak. Will you comply with the judge's order?
Absolutely, but we've never done that. We've never done that. What we have always done is built a case and done investigative work in who we go after and who we target. And so this judge is ridiculous in the fact that he put forward a decision like this. We will appeal it and we will win it because over and over again, when our ICE officers are out there getting the worst of the worst off of our streets, they're using the investigative backgrounds and information that they have from either criminal records or what they have for charges or individuals who are breaking our federal laws that need to be brought to justice.
Madam Secretary, Tom Homan and the White House border czar said as much this week. He told Fox News that physical appearance was a factor in detaining individuals. What do you say to those who hear that and say that is racial profiling?
The facts of how we do our investigations and our casework and what ICE officers are doing today is they're going out there and building a case just like other law enforcement officers do. They're going out there and doing the investigative work, gathering the information to decide how we're going to run our ops and how we're going to target individuals. And overwhelmingly, people have heard the president say over and over again about how important it is that we continue to go after the worst of the worst. This week, we've got murderers off the street, rapists, child pedophiles. If you look at that marijuana grow facility that we recently just did an operation on, over 319 individuals were brought into custody and 14 unaccompanied children that means that they don't have their parents with them. They're working in a facility where they could be exploited, trafficked, maybe sex trafficked. And then we've got individuals there who are working at the same facility who are creating, distributing, and taking advantage of children for child pornography. So this is something that President Trump has taken seriously, is protecting children while we're doing
Couple
this.
more here, if we can get them in. Florida lawmakers visited the migrant detention center in Florida, which your administration has dubbed Alligator Alcatraz.
So really quick, guys, that's what ICE is doing. They're protecting the kids. They're not profiling. They're just trying to ensure the safety. But the media is trying to spin it around like they're just picking up random Hispanic looking people. Like, no. They're protecting the kids. At the end of the day, that's what matters because they are the future, whether you want to admit it or not. I live in the present, so I'm worried about the future. Always, every day. Forget the past. Let's worry about the future and let's focus on that. Let's keep going, guys. The video's almost over. Make sure you're liking the video.
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said that the conditions there are inhumane. More than 30 people stuffed into a jail cell. She said they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth from the same place where they go to the bathroom. Madam Secretary, what do you say to these lawmakers who argue this is not humane treatment of individuals, of humans?
Well, our detention centers at the federal level are held to a higher standard than most local or state centers and even federal prisons. The standards are extremely high. Now, this is a state-run facility at Alligator Alcatraz,
but
they have a
stuffed into a jail
they have
cell?
a contrast. Well, I've been there and I've seen these rooms that they are in. I wouldn't call them jail cells. I would call them a facility where they are held and that are secure facilities, but are held to the highest levels of what the federal government requires for detention facilities.
Democrats have called them cages, though. They say
I wish they would have said that back
and
during the Biden administration and back when Democrats were in the White House and they were piling people on top of each other on cement floors.
That's what a lot of people aren't talking about. Biden, Obama, Clinton, everybody. Everybody deported people. Obama deported more people than Trump, but they sit there and they try to make it like Trump's the bad guy in the media. Trump is the bad guy for them, but he's the good guy for us. He's the guy that's worried about us. The real crisis isn't FEMA delays. It's the media lying through their teeth while brave men and women go out there and risk their lives. Under Trump, we rescue. We don't retreat. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're new. And as always, let me know what to react to. We're out.